on Tuesday, August 1st, 2023 at 6 p.m. Present tonight, I have Councilman Podeska, Councilman Comber, Councilman Wilden, Councilman Carn, Councilman Porter. Did he join us electronically? He should be joining us shortly. Okay, so he'll be joining us shortly. So we do have a quorum tonight. I've asked Councilman Wilden to lead us in our invocation and Councilman Comber to lead us in our pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful that we're able to be gathered here this evening at the City Council, and we're grateful to be able to evaluate and make decisions for the betterment of our community and the citizens of this wonderful city. And we're grateful for all those who serve in the city, including our first responders. And these things we say in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Will the audience please rise and join me in repeating the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on the agenda. If you're here for the public hearings, please hold your comments for those. Please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody here for public input? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public input. Any reports from the council? Okay. Administration?
Yes, just wanted to publicly announce that tonight is the National Night Out Against Crime. The police department is over at Walmart, and we are going to adjourn from this meeting, but then go over and hopefully be able to spend some time with our amazing public safety folks and city employees that are over there celebrating that tonight. So we do not have need for a closed session tonight, but we do have that event. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. We do have a public hearing. First one up is the budget amendment for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Evening, Mayor and Council. This is the first budget amendment of this fiscal year. Most of the items are related to updating Bluffdale PD's numbers. We just got those updated from Bluffdale City, so we're updating it on our end. And then a couple updates on various capital projects as well. Any questions for staff at this time?
Councilman Comber?
Thanks. I'm just pulling it up here. So I had just a question on the, sorry, there it is. I just wanted to get here. On the recreation program expenses, I'm just noticing here that we have a new budget amount and we're using the Pepsi sponsorship money. I'm just wondering why the decision was to use the Pepsi sponsorship money and maybe why we're not looking at potentially raising, because it looks like the cost is going up for buying expenses, buying equipment, and why we're not raising the fee and making so the people who are using the services are paying for them. And I sort of looked at the Pepsi sponsorship money more for civic events the whole community would benefit from, not just people who are signing up for the small percentage that sign up for a sport. Is there anyone who can speak to that?
This is for, so the challenge we have is we've been trying to fill some of the programming positions with part-time employees, and so we're looking to convert that to a full-time position.
Sorry, the next row, Mark, the recreation program expenses, it says additional monies needed for various equipment purchases funded with Pepsi sponsorship money. Not the role, not the position.
Go ahead, Ann.
That Pepsi sponsorship money is broken into two parts. We receive a sponsorship that specifically goes to Patriot Park, and that goes to the recreation for, programs that they're running in Patriot and things like that. And then we have sponsorship monies that are specific to city events that goes to city events.
Okay, that's how I understood it, but it says here it's funded with Pepsi sponsorship money, and so maybe it was just misworded.
Yeah, I ensure that civic events gets their money, and then and that Heston gets, or the recreation gets their money. So I think it was worded broadly, but it's the specifically Patriot Park sponsorship monies.
For recreation.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
That's all, Mayor, thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? Not, this is a public hearing. I will open it up for public comment. If anybody's here for public comment, same rules as before. Please state your name and address at the podium. Seeing none, I will close public input on this and entertain a motion.
I move that we approve budget amendments F fiscal year 2023-2024, resolution R 23-36 dated today.
Second.
I have a first from Councilman McComber, second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Has he been able to join us yet, Porter?
I think so.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Public hearing item 2, street road name change.
Mayor, Council, this item is to begin the process of changing Mountain View Corridor, or Foothill Boulevard 800 West to Mountain View Corridor as requested by the City Council. We'd be happy to take any feedback in on that. We put some signs out and went through the public notice process for name change such as this. And if you recall, the state does have money for environmental impact study that will be happening this fall that will have further implications for this road, but we felt that it was the appropriate time to change the name and make this Mountain View Corridor.
Okay, Councilman McComber?
Just a quick question. So I'm all in favor of having this changed to Mountain View Corridor. Is there going to be any confusion when we have the Mountain View Corridor Freeway and not calling it maybe Mountain View Corridor Boulevard? Because this would be the frontage road that would be named, because the freeway, it'll be the same name as the freeway as the frontage road. Do you anticipate any issues with that?
I don't. Again, we talked to UDOT, and, I mean, freeway, you know, for us to call a two-lane road today freeway would be pretentious.
No, I'm not saying, I'm talking about calling this the boulevard, because the freeway is going to be called the Mountain View Corridor. If they don't call it the freeway, they say Mountain View
Yeah,
Corridor.
and again, this would become a frontage road system. So like, for example, 2100, just out to our north.
Right, but
I
it'll be
don't-
the Mountain View Corridor with 2100 frontage roads. Do you see the
Yeah.
difference?
Yeah, Jeremy, do you have any feedback on whether that would become a legislature issue? I don't think so, but
I think that's the way it's titled all the way through Salt Lake County.
It's Mountain
Mountain
View,
View Corridor.
the frontage road is, and then the freeway will just be the Mountain View Corridor.
We asked UDOT, they seem to have no preference whether it's corridor, street, or whatever. So we asked them specifically if they were concerned about it being called corridor, and they said no.
Okay, then I'm not worried. I don't know, I wonder why Lehigh then chose to have it be 2100 versus Mountain View
I wonder
Corridor.
if they'll change, well, yeah, I don't know.
Because it isn't, I don't have a problem, I just want to make sure there isn't a problem. in it.
Consistency's
I don't
a
want to have to change the name again, is all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
We specifically asked Rob, the region director, are you okay if it's, Mountain View corridor? And he
Then
said,
let's do
"Yeah,
it."
there." So,
You don't live on a freeway anyway, so an address would never be the Mountain View Corridor Freeway, it would be the frontage road anyway, so I'm fine. Just wanted to make sure, thank you.
Perfect. This is a public hearing. Is anybody here for comment on the road name change? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve public hearing item 2 as stated on the agenda.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden,
A second?
second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion? Podeska?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I'll entertain a motion on the consent items.
So made.
I have a first from Councilman McComber,
Second.
second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Business item 1.
Good evening, council and mayor. The application before you is the Valvoline Oil site plan. This is located on Lakeview Drive and between Lakeview Drive and Redwood Road in the, I'll call it the Home Depot subdivision, or Plat F, Saratoga Springs Commercial Plat F. This is, again, show you the location, 0.7 acres. It's kind of a little different lot. It's a little narrower, but they've seemed to design the site pretty well. This is a quick lube use. So they have the drive-through lanes, they meet all of the parking, landscaping, and the elevations. And staff recommends approval of this site plan. Or Planning Commission recommended approval of the site plan, sorry. Any questions?
Okay. If there's none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Valvoline Oil Saratoga Springs Commercial Lot 603 site plan, Bradley Carter applicant, dated, not dated today, 1283 North Redwood Road.
I have a first from Councilman McComber.
Sorry, with all staff findings and conditions.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, and a second, Councilman Podeska. Councilman Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Can you please let the applicant know how much we appreciate when they actually meet all of the...
They're here.
It's very, it's
you.
totally complete.
I mean, there wasn't one can comply, I mean,
Yeah, it was great.
it is a very good application.
Like-
But look how fast that went. So maybe it took a while to get to there, but then this was quick. So thank you. Good luck, and you got a
Anticipate
great
starting?
location.
Yeah.
Home Depot and oil change, come on. Like every man's dream.
River's Edge East Site Plan.
All right, so this is the River's Edge East Site Plan. It's located on approximately 400 East and Crossroads Boulevard. You can see that reflected here on the map. It's in the regional commercial zone. It's also in the gateway overlay. It's 2 parcels that'll become a single parcel with 3 buildings on it. The site plan meets all of our requirements. There is one item, the parking does require a approval from the Land Use Authority. The City Council has to approve a reduction in what they're proposing here. So City Code requires 273 stalls. They're showing 254 on here. They're proposing that 19 of those spaces would be shared. They had a traffic study done that showed that they didn't require, that peak demand, they didn't believe they would exceed the 254 spaces that they have. Other than that, the site plan does meet our requirements as far as landscaping is concerned and lighting standards. These are some elevations of the buildings that they're proposing. This is you can see they also have covered parking, which would be up in the top right of your screen there. Our code does require a certain percentage of that be covered parking. And so, as a reminder, these buildings are mixed use, so they would have a combination of residential and commercial uses. Let me go to another screen here so you can get a better idea of the makeup of what's inside these buildings. So, looking at the left-hand side of your screen, that's north. Right-hand side of your screen would be south. And so you're seeing building 1, 2, and 3 accordingly. The middle building would have a majority of what they're proposing as hotel space on the first and second floors. On the south building, you would also see some hotel space on that first floor and a little bit on the second floor. That's represented by the green. And then on the north building, it would have a professional office space, which you can see on the first floor there. And then that pink there, that's amenity space, so they're planning to have kind of a gym facility, and then that would also be kind of where the front desk is for the hotel, where you check in. And then they were proposing a restaurant on the far south end of the south building, which would be fronting the road there. And so up on the upper 2 floors and a little bit on the second floor, you see residential units. So those are comprised of 1 and 2 bedroom units. And the white kind of grayish is the 1 bedroom, and then the 2 bedroom are in blue. This is kind of an overall view of what it would look like looking from the east. Those are ideas of some of the amenities that they're proposing, minus the kayak launch. That's something that they will not be able to provide at this time, so everything else, though, would be provided with this plan.
They just not get approval?
So the kayak, it's complicated. They have to go through the Army Corps of Engineers and a bunch of other things. They're still planning to do it, but they have to go through that long process to get it approved. This is just talking about the parking deviation that I already explained. And so just one other thing to mention, this project would be affected by our sewer capacity issues that we're having with the Posey Lift Station. So this site plan approval would grant approval of the site plan, but it would not be a final approval. They would be subject to the sewer capacity issue being resolved before they would proceed forward with this project. I think that pretty much covers everything. I guess, let me go back, and these are the materials that they're proposing. So it's a majority of stone and wood. They do have enclosed staircases that you see in the front there. And then the back side, the east side, has a lot of balconies to take advantage of the views of the mountain and the river. I think that's about everything. So it does meet all of our requirements, but it would require that the city council grant an exception to the parking requirement as proposed.
Councilman McComber?
So I just have questions on.
You were on, I thought.
So I have questions on the parking. It says that the 19 shares subject to approval by the land authority, and that you have to get approval from who you're going to be using the mutual access to. Are they getting approval from themselves?
Yes, so they would be, the land use, they would be over the whole they would be leasing out everything, so they would be.
So they're basically getting approval from themselves. They also paid for a professional traffic engineer who they paid for, give them the information
Correct.
they wanted. I've yet to see any project that truly justifies or having a reduction in parking, have it work. The old Vasa, we'll share with Walmart, didn't work. All it did was fill up in front of Cafe Rio and along the road, and it became a little logistic nightmare. Everywhere where we've said, oh yeah, we'll share with somebody else, it doesn't work. They're creating a demand, they're creating the requirement. We have that same requirement across the board to all of our other developments. I'm just very concerned that basically it's because they're a hotel and a long-term lease place that they're saying that they don't need it. It doesn't jive with me. They basically have that many units of housing, period. And they're saying that they don't plan on ever fully having all of their rooms rented, then they shouldn't go into business. Because if that happens, there's not going to be enough parking. On a holiday weekend, during July, splash days, when people are coming to visit their family to enjoy splash days, I get a smile, I thought. There's going to have capacity. For me to grant a variance on something like that, it needs to be obvious. Like even with the Walmart, there was plenty of parking over by the Walmart. And I always found it ironic that gym people weren't willing to walk. But it just always made me laugh because they were so mad about walking, so they would illegally park so they can get 50 feet closer to the gym entrance. And even now we're having people, they don't want to park behind the Vasa or next to it because they don't want to have to walk around to the front. So it just makes me laugh because they're going in to run on a treadmill. But this situation, I just don't feel comfortable. I'm one of 4 today making a reduction. I think they just need to make it work on the site that they have. They've got a lot of land. We're also, everything else complies, so they can get their parking in line. At least that's why my vote will go the way it does. I'd like to see this without the reduction. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Podesta?
So out of the 19 stalls that they're deficient, is that, what categories are those from? Are they short in the office, or are they short in the
The
residential?
applicant here.
So most of the stalls, I guess, so it would be both residential and then the office space as would be kind of trading off. So the study that they had done by Hales Engineering basically said that, some people would be
During the
working
off hours. Yeah.
off hours, so when people are working, people in the residential space would be gone, and then vice versa, when the people come home, the office space is then vacated and empty. And so the idea was they could make the parking work in that sense.
And is it the residential that has more parking requirement than the hotel?
It does, yes.
And is there anything in here that would lock in the use, meaning that the hotel or the residential vice versa can't change over time?
We don't have anything, I mean, as is being proposed right now, we don't have anything that says these uses are locked in perpetuity.
Because the concern would be is with hotel being less than residential, if then the hotel later became residential,
Yep.
how does that?
Councilman Podeska, Kevin Thurman had a comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any use that's permitted in that zone, they could file for a change of use. If this was something that was restricted in a development agreement when the property was rezoned, that's something that we could have done. But right now, they're entitled to all the uses that are permitted in the land use table as of today's date.
So,
And it will actually in the future, so if they change the use, they would be grandfathered as of today's date in what they've applied for and what they're approved for. The code can change. And that's something, if you're concerned about that from a code, like in the future, like.
Well, like in the future, like let's
Change
just
the
say the
use.
ownership changes and they decide that a hotel isn't as profitable, so they change it all to residential.
Right.
Now we're maybe deficient 40 stalls or 50.
Yeah, and so if you notice our change of use section, it does say that all the other requirements of the code have to be met. So if they'd be deficient in parking, they would have to
Kevin's
make up the difference somehow.
So during
But
that
if you
change
want
request,
to prevent something like this from happening and you want to place further restrictions in the use code, that's something that you could consider. They're vested as of today's date with the approval that they're getting. But technically, if they were applying for residential right now or to turn those into short-term rentals, they could have that because short-term rentals are permitted in the RC zone.
what's the difference between short-term rental and apartment?
Less than 30 days.
So,
I believe it's a month.
A short-term rental can only be under 30 days, not longer than.
So the zone allows for short-term rentals?
It does
Yes.
with that recent code change that was approved.
Okay, so can I speak?
Yeah.
All right. First of all, I love this product. I think it looks good. I think it serves a need in our community. I think it's great. I am concerned that if the hotel concept doesn't work out, that they become short-term rentals, and that could potentially change the parking requirement. More cars, yeah. That's my concern. And if the zone allows it today, and we grant that today, well, then we're stuck in the future when those potentially could become short-term rentals down the road. I'm not saying it ever will, but we always have to say what could happen. And that could absolutely happen. And I love this product. I think it's great. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, did you mean to say if the short-term rentals became long-term rentals?
No, the current hotel spaces,
if they became residential.
if those became residential short-term rentals or
I think you're like, for it to be an apartment, it would be a long-term
long-term rent, okay.
as opposed to a short-term.
Yeah.
And so to your point, and I think, Councilmember Podeska hit on it, is.
I don't even know what the layout is if it would work for it.
Yeah, and I don't think
Or
this
be
is.
redesigned.
I think, though, what Kevin is implying is if you are concerned that the short-term rentals are somehow going to become apartments, and this just becomes an all-apartment complex. Again, the whole purpose of this is there's commercial, and that's what's allowing the density, and that was part of the density bonus that comes with this, is because there's commercial, and then there's housing on top of this. I think, to Kevin's point, if you're concerned about that somehow reverting and just becoming a housing product, which is an apartment complex, then you need to address that in the other section of code regarding changes of use. Because theoretically, if this all turned to a long-term or an apartment complex, then it no longer met the base zoning which is in place today, which is they've got the density that they did because it's over commercial. And so I think that's an intricacy that doesn't stop it for tonight. I mean, your decision on the reduced parking is your decision for tonight. But if you would like to direct us tonight to adjust the change of use so that it doesn't change the compliance of that commercial and then the amount of commercial that was approved as part of your approvals, then we'd want to tackle that in another section of code and another code amendment.
So I understand.
The proper place, let me just clarify really quickly. I'm not saying change the change of use permit section. I would recommend if you're concerned about something that gets built as a hotel and it changes into strictly residential, so long-term rentals, then you'd want to specify that can't happen in the code. So it would not be a permitted use to change that.
So that would require a change in the mixed waterfront code?
And I don't know how, I'm not sure exactly how we'd address that. but
Okay,
we-
so
May I add something really quick? So on let me just go back to the building here. So one thing that our code does say is that you cannot have residential units on the main floor. So the only reason they're getting them is because they're putting them above commercial. So building the middle building and the south building wouldn't work under our current code if they were to change from hotels to residential units.
okay.
So if there's a code cleanup, we can address that elsewhere at another time.
I understand the reduction in parking
Yeah.
because of the office, daytime parking compared to nighttime parking. That makes sense to me. I was just concerned about future use.
Exactly.
And knowing our code wasn't even allow it on the first floor helps address that for me.
And just to clarify again, if they do change the use, they have to meet the requirement for that changed use.
So they'd have to
That the
create
code
another
is really
40
clear.
stalls.
Signage and parking requirements have to be met at the time of the change of use,
Okay.
not the requirements now, the requirements in the future.
In the future.
And they're only grandfathered to what they're being approved today.
And oh my goodness, we spent all this money, we built these buildings, we really need this, and oh my goodness, we've invested millions of dollars, we need these parking spots, we can't get it for you, make it work, and we have shared, and so that's what we get the sob stories all the time, and we just need to stop getting ourselves in these situations. It's 19 shared, but really if they wanted to go all residential, it's a 40-plus stalls they require, because residential, we all know that people don't have one car, they have 2 and even 3 cars. Rental, like a rental, it's usually 1 car they're renting, right? So that's why it would work, but I think we really need to look at this from the long-term perspective.
But what they're saying is from current code, the first floor could never be converted beyond
never be
hotel.
According to our code today.
Yeah.
Code today,
Yeah.
but code can change. We change code all the time. And that's the thing, it's like, there's newly people are gonna get elected, new things, we have to, we just need to be careful. And I'm one of 4 votes, and so we'll see how it goes, but that's just, I think we really need to think of this long-term.
Is the applicant here? Do they want to say anything? If you want to come up.
Bruce Bastian, 754 East, 60 South, American Fork. I think the first thing I'd point out about these hotel units is that they're 315 square feet. They do not have anything but a bathtub, a toilet, and a sink. So this isn't a place that somebody can really convert into a long-term residential unit or even a short-term residential unit just because it's just your standard hotel.
Actually, there are micro units all over, and the micro units are becoming a trend. So to your point, I don't disagree, but we do have to consider that potentially micro units could become a discussion point in the future. So I think the conversation is really saying, hey, we're locked in. I think there's no reason that we couldn't move forward tonight from the conversation that was happening. Really just more wanting to make sure that if there are concerns, we address those concerns in the appropriate code at another time.
And walls could get knocked down and bigger units built, so.
Well, if you did knock down walls, you would have more parking than would be required if you started converting those into apartments, because there's 79 stalls for each of these. There's 79 stalls, so 1 stall for each of the keys. And if you were to create units that would be marketable in Saratoga Springs, you'd have to at least combine two for 1.
Yeah, Justin Earl, 2630 Canyon Road, Springville, Utah. We actually buy hotels and convert them to multifamily. Like that's part of our business model. We bought the Red Lion Hotel downtown Salt Lake City, converted that to apartments. I bought a hotel in New York, Western New York area. We took 3 bedrooms or 3 hotel units and turned it into 1 2-bedroom. So a parking requirement for 3 stalls turned into 2 stalls. We take 2 units and turned it into a 1-bedroom. So to Bruce's point, if you were to convert this to housing at some point in the future, it's not a 79 parking requirement, 1-to-1 kind of ratio, because we take multiple units to turn it into a unit. Micro units are becoming a thing, but frankly, not in suburban Saratoga Springs. Like, as a developer, I would never build a 300 square foot studio apartment here. I mean, it's just not marketable. So all that said, and the other thing to just make a point of is, if we wanted to make a change, we got to come back to you. You can just say no. I mean, we can't just make a change. To both their points, we're only vested with the code that's today, and if we want to come make a change to all long-term rentals, we have to come back with new parking study, all new signage, everything that was just addressed, and you can just tell us, no, you can't make that change.
So I have a quick question. What is the parking requirement for a condo, like in Aldera? Roughly, I mean,
Apartment or condo?
is it 2?
It's based on the number of bedrooms. So the more bedrooms they have, the more parking you need.
And it has to be covered, and we had a cover requirement.
We
and-
do have a certain amount that has to be covered.
At least 1 per unit.
Let me pull it up just so I give you the exact correct information. I don't want to misquote it. So let me just get up the code really quick.
Where I'm going from is like, so there's two things here. One, 19 shared uses for commercial and residential. If we think that they can get away with not having 19, that's one thing. The other one is they make a conversion, they're going to come back and they're saying that it's even less requirement, because if you make it a 2 units into 1, you're making it a apartment for, but we still had 2 parking spots required for the 2 hotel rooms. You combine them and to make it a 1-bedroom, is it still 2 cars, right? A 1-bedroom apartment has a 2-car requirement.
So you'll see that we have a variety of requirements. And so the current situation is 1 stall per bedroom or 2 stalls per unit, one of which must be covered, whichever is lower, plus the required guest stalls.
Right, so
So their 2-bedroom has to have 2, and then their 1-bedroom has to have 1, and then one of these has to be covered. And then they have to have.
well, no, actually, the
Guest stall.
multifamily dwelling, 1 stall per bedroom or 2 stalls per unit. So it's a minimum of 2 for the unit.
Well, so the category right above that, dwelling above commercial, which is this one, but then it says whichever is lower right here. So 1 stall per bedroom or 2 per unit, one of which must be covered, and then it says whichever is lower.
So it's 1,
For the 1-bedroom, it's 1.
and it's covered.
And for the 2-bedroom, it's 2, but then say you had a 3-bedroom, which they don't have any, so that doesn't apply, but then a 3-bedroom is still 2. So I think that's the point here is, yeah,
And the 1 has to be covered.
right.
Okay. So that's just one thing, and that just comes in. I just want to make sure that we're positioning ourselves if there is a change, because I'm worried that there won't be a demand as much for this potentially, especially if a hotel comes in over in the commercial area, because then you can walk and get food. I think I'm just worried that there won't be a demand and they're going to be coming in for a change. But that still doesn't lead the whole fact that 19 shared stalls, and for me, that's how my vote's going to go, is because I just don't feel like there is justification for a shared, even currently, between the 2 uses, because many people are coming even for work. They'll have other people. You've got restaurants. People are going to come multiple cars to come eat dinner. They're meeting there. I just really want to make sure that we don't create undue burden on the neighbors and unsightly taking this beautiful product and making it unsightly because all the cars parked on the main road, which is not true parking. So thank you.
If I may, you asked for comments. One thing about this project that we're most excited about, well, we're excited about a lot of pieces of this, but you can see on the far right there, on the bottom, it says restaurant. We actually think that's like a really great spot for kind of a sit-down style restaurant, not fast food. It's on the river. We think it's gonna, I mean, if you can go, could you show the view? Like yeah. Up against the bridge, out there along the road, it's got great visibility, which all restaurant groups. It's got the trail that we're gonna put in along the riverbank. We anticipate putting a bunch of outdoor dining, seating area. We think that could be a really great spot. Restaurant has the highest stalls per square foot requirement in what we're proposing. And the number of square feet that we've got, I think it requires 30-something stalls, somewhere in that range. The zoning doesn't require restaurant in a mixed use. It just requires commercial under the residential. If we get a no vote because of the 19 shared stalls, and please, this is not like no threat, it's just the reality is, it's not. The reality is we don't have enough parking, so we would have to do like an office, professional office type use, which has a much lower parking requirement to meet the commercial under residential. And we would hate to do that because we really like the idea of doing the restaurant. But that's just the reality of the situation.
No, I was just looking at the numbers, and I know you can request up to 25%. The calculation is just shy of 7%. So I would guess that, the additional 19, we don't have a parking layout, at least that I saw, was just, it doesn't fit, is what I'm hearing. If it was anything other than office space, I would be concerned. I would like, if we do move forward with this, Mark, and to look at the change request to make sure that's all buttoned up. I mean, this is, I'm always concerned about parking as well, and I share many of those concerns that it's been shared before, but I do think this is a unique product that we could benefit in the city. I mean, there's another area similar to this that they proposed something. This is so much better than that other thing. I'll just say it on record, it's crap on paper. I mean, you can tell them I said that, that's fine. But, what? Anyway, so this is great, and as far as, and everyone shared that as far as the product you're proposing, and I think I can loosely get comfortable with the 19 since we're only pushing for the 6.9%, rounds up to 7%, as long as we go and address the change code area.
The developer has submitted a presentation and they're asking permission to share that.
That's fine.
Okay.
So for this conversation, if you could scroll down to the last 4 slides. We're just really abstract with our discussion about the parking, and I'm hopeful that this can help clear things up a little bit. So if you see here, this is an outcropping from Hales Engineering's report. And you can scroll down to the next slide just to zoom in. They're showing the parking demand for each different time of day, at least what is experienced in similar suburban areas like Saratoga Springs. And as you can see, the parking demand for residential, which they actually bumped it up from what you usually would expect because they were trying to compensate for more people working from home. So they actually made that dip less pronounced to say, okay, there's going to be probably twice the number of people working from home as there used to be. And so they shallowed up that dip. But you can see that the dip for the multifamily happens and occurs at the same time that the increase in office demand occurs, and vice versa. When the people in the offices start going home, people start returning to their dwellings in the multifamily side of the project. So this is very much different than a fitness center or a gym, which is a very high parking usage scenario. This is an office space. And if you could scroll down to the next slide. If you look The blue section is just a representation of stalls required for multifamily. The red section is the number of stalls required for office. And then when you combine or share 19 stalls, that's the total number of stalls that you're looking at. So this is allocation, which is purple. So this is just allocation to each use. But then, Sarah, if you would scroll down to the next one, the peak demand for parking that Hales Engineering is actually projecting, just because no hotel is ever, or at least very rarely, is 100% occupied. Otherwise, there would be hotels all over the place. Also, the restaurant, the office space. This is a picture of what it looks like around 9 p.m. on a weekend, which is the peak time of parking.
Is the restaurant yellow?
The restaurant is yellow, yeah. So there's actually 35 stalls surplus, just because what you would expect in demand from each use at this peak moment. Those bubbles and colors, get bigger and smaller depending on the time of day, but at the peak parking demand, there's actually projected to be a surplus just because of the uses. And
So the office only has 4 stall requirement?
at 9 p.m. on a weekend, yes.
You had that for the whole, on every,
So if you go back up, everything that's purple is shared between residential and office. So during the daytime, all that purple stuff is used by the office. And then during the evening times, all that purple stuff is used by the residents.
so how, in comparison, just help me understand, Olive Garden we have now versus this restaurant, are they close to the same or?
Square footage?
Square footage wise? Because there's like no parking, Olive Garden.
I think you'd have to have no to-go stalls with the reduction of 19. Because that takes up a lot of their parking.
4 to 8 spots.
I don't know how big Olive Garden is, but this restaurant is 2,700 square feet. So it's required that there's 1 stall per 100 square feet.
How big's Olive Garden?
I'm just curious because they did shared parking. They did share parking with the other things around them. And they're like, oh, it's a coffee place. It's not going to be busy when we have our main restaurant times. And it's not the case. It's busy. And so it's creating major issues there. So again, where we've tried to be creative, it's come back to bite us. Okay.
I will say, I live relatively close to some high-density areas where parking is a complete disaster overnight. And that's where I was coming in, kind of picturing this, but some of the high-traffic areas, like the restaurant, whatever, I don't know when restaurants close. I have kids, so I never go out that late. 9 or 10, that's when those are probably starting to filter out. Because, these apartment complexes at the very front of Harvest Hills, it's 10, 11, 12, when it's just an absolute disaster along the roads there.
And that's what you would expect with a single-use scenario with multifamily, because all of those stalls are just meeting the requirements that Sarah was reviewing with you earlier. Whereas in our case, we're meeting all of the requirements that you would usually have for a multifamily, but then we have all these extra stalls for office for our use. We have all these extra stalls for restaurant that in the middle of the night aren't used. So you have a flux and flow in a way that you don't have with a regular multifamily apartment.
I can see that.
How big's the road that this is on? When
It's a major arterial, 400 East.
parking pours out on that road?
Now it's not that big. But
Yeah.
It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be
It's
big.
400 East. They are dedicating some right-of-way with the project. I don't know what the standard.
Cross-section is, I think it's a
Cross-section.
major arterial, is that what you think?
It is a major
It
arterial.
is, yeah.
We're improving
The
the
road
road along
parking
there.
on major arterial?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
We don't allow road parking on major
Well,
arterials.
there's a shoulder, so.
But we don't allow,
We
like you
don't,
can't park on
it's
the.
not red striped or anything like that, right? So it's like parking on the side of Redwood Road. You
But we
can-
don't allow that.
Well, if there's a shoulder, you can park there.
Yeah, our agreement with Lehigh was that we would mirror their cross-section as that road extends. So that's what we're shooting to do.
So you can park overnight on Redwood Road?
If you're out of the travel lanes, you can.
And out of the bike lane.
There's actually semis that
Really interesting.
park
Not if
there all
you
the time,
value
but
your car.
anyway.
Do it. I sure wouldn't do it.
Mayor, if I may, I just got that number. So it's 6,500 square feet,
Well, 3 times bigger.
about 3 times, yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. If there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve business item 2 as stated on the agenda, including all staff findings and conditions.
And then you have to, and then allowing the 19 should.
Oh, is that not part of the?
That's part of it, I
Is that a
think.
condition, allowing it?
It's number 7.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden.
I'll second.
Second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion? Councilman Carn,
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Comber,
Nay.
Podeska.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1. Thank you. Business item 3.
Mayor,
Yeah.
when do you guys plan on starting?
We'd like to break ground before snow flies.
Great,
That's the hope.
Perfect.
great, thanks.
Okay. Let's see. Consideration of authorizing the filing of eminent domain proceedings for Scott McLaughlin property, portion of Utah County.
Yeah, so it should say portions. I'm not sure why it says portion, but Mayor and Council, this is, city is currently installing a water well and pump station on property that it has rights to by license and easement agreement. We would like to acquire the property in fee simple, as well as acquire a portion of the property in easement over another portion of the property that's a more direct route across Pioneer Crossing. If you remember, we brought this to you about a year ago, and we pushed pause on this because the property was under contract for a developer to acquire it. And we were negotiating, obtaining the fee simple ownership and easements with that new developer. Well, that deal the developers backed out of that deal, and so we're back to the same place we were about a year ago. So this is the property north of Pioneer Crossing, west of Lehigh's 2300 West. So we're asking for your authorization of filing the eminent domain proceedings. The property owner has been provided the 10-day notice as required by the code. I don't know if the property owner has a representative here, but if they do, then they're entitled to speak to the council about this matter. It's not a public hearing, but the property owner can speak about whether they have any objections to this eminent domain proceeding. But if you authorize staff to move forward with this, we plan on hiring an attorney to get this filed as soon as possible.
Okay, I don't see a representative here, so I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve business item 3, consideration of authorizing the filing of eminent domain proceedings with any findings and conditions in the staff report.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Carn,
I'll second.
second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion?
I
Podeska?
don't think can we just mention approval of the resolution as well? I don't think I did for that.
Change as noted by the city attorney.
Also approving the resolution.
Approving the resolution.
A second amended.
Okay, any further discussion?
Hopefully, negotiations will
Yes.
be fruitful.
Yep. Councilman Podeska?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. No need for closed session, so the meeting is adjourned.
Hey, Mark,
Yes.
when can we get on the agenda or get working on the, what we're discussing about change request?